Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Bebop here. Today's video is one of my favorite builds in the game that I hardly ever get to run anymore. So I decided to pull it out today over here on Nisa's server. Got a Hive going. Now, I used to speedrun with this setup because we had a great sword tank at the time, Mr. Mojito. But with this SNS build, you're also going to have a spear that has bleeding sweep on the spear. And with the SNS setup, you have the butcher. I'll go over everything at the end with attributes, skill trees, and much more. You are able to constantly put down bleeds and extend bleeds for all the teammates with this build. Now, if you're a fan of seeing all the bleeds and the numbers on the screen like I am, this is the one for you. Now, what is really good about this, if you see at the very top left, you see Bebop down there at the bottom, not with a DPS symbol. I leave that blank if I run this build, because then when I go off tanking, I'll put that on. But basically, I'm like the second group's tank, I guess you would say. I'm providing leadership to the second group. Now, the tank up top is providing leadership to the first group. What is leadership? It is 10% additional damage to all teammates while you have your sword out. That is huge. So basically, the second group, we're having 40% more damage because I have a sword out most of the time. I pull the spear out every now and then, just if I think I can get a better bleed. Oh my God, Bebop! A better bleed stat number. I can't talk today. Holy shit. Then I would pull that spear out. Now, right here, the upheaval 20,533. Let's go. This is a pug lobby. I don't know how much Ren. I don't think we have a Ren bot or anything, but we do have some good teammates and all that stuff. So it's, but we're just not maxed out on Ren. Now, I do see the hammer player with the armor breaker and stuff like that, but man, I really feel like we should be able to get up to 25k with that upheaval. That might be big dreams, but yeah, we were melting just fine right here. I wish we could see the overall stacks like on the sandworm, but unfortunately we cannot do that. But look at all the bleeds on the screen. That's what I used to love running this build in speed runs. It's just so much fun. Now, I explained why Defender's Resolve at the end instead of Leaping Strike. I'm a big fan of having Leaping Strike over Defender's Resolve. I know what people will say with that, but I don't care. I just like it better. Now, the overall damage boost you will get with Defender's Resolve in a light equip load is going to be your highest DPS, they say. So I would recommend going with that. But the Leaping Strike to me, one, it's fun. Two, it adds slow in case other teammates are adding slow. I don't see any slows up there on the debuff bar. I'd have to go back and maybe look, but I haven't seen one yet. So I don't know if I'm taking full advantage of the dots I have for the Sword and Shield with the slow bonuses. So if the tank isn't running Shield Rush all the way down the tree, you don't have the slow there. If no one else is applying slow, I think the hammer probably is, with depending on if he has right side ultimate, then I'm losing more DPS. But in a bona fide fully kitted group, that's different. So people have to look at it as two different things. Do you run pugs or do you run only a designated group so you cover all angles? So any video I make that's people like, well, what's the skill tree or what's this or what's that? There's not a definite. It varies so much in this game. It's so difficult to answer a lot of questions on, well, what's your skill tree? Well, it depends. What am I doing? What am I about to do? What role am I? Am I in an M3? Am I in the Winter Rune Forge? Am I in the hatchery? No, because no one does that. Am I in the Hive? Okay, so it changes all the time. So there's not a one set build out there, guys, that is just like the meta. You got to run it, You'll just have to gain experience in the game, and later on, when you get the more experience, you're gonna realize, okay, for this situation, I'm gonna do this skill tree, I'm gonna adapt to this. By the way, those rocks right there, if you don't notice already a few times, I'm doing that on purpose. I'm showing that you could double dodge right through those if you're on the side. There's no need to run all the way around and freak out. There's also a spot at the very back of the tail when all the rocks are on the side and there's not a little safe space for you. Then you go to the back of the tail at like a 45-degree angle between the rock and the tail. You just sit right there in that little gap and you're good to go. Like right here. All you gotta do is sit there and that's it. You just move right there and you're good to go. Or you can just take the tail hit and then just go right back to DPSing. Okay, but you'd want to block the tail hit because if not, you'll probably get knocked. But if you hold block, you just take the tail hit and just keep going. Usually you have Sacred or whatnot. We had one healer and he did great the whole run. So I mean, you'll be just fine. You have leeching and everything like that. You should be self-sufficient. Don't rely on the healer all the time, guys. Stop blaming them for everything and become self-sufficient. All right, here we are on the second boss. I always like to try to get a heavy with the spear in time, like right now. And then right as his health bar appears, I loves it to hit, and then I skewer, then I perforate and go into that. Like, you're preloading him before his health bar is up, so there's really no, you know, downside to it. And it's a free, you know, 7K or whatever the hit may be. If you can get used to doing that, it's just added DPS. The tank should be pre-taunting, so you shouldn't get aggro. The tank pre-taunts about 2 seconds before the health bar comes up. We should be just fine. But right here, just wanted to try to get the perforate on him, the bleed and sweep, and then I'm trying to stick on the sword. Same thing with the bird here. Get a little skewer, go ahead and perforate, get a bleed, and then I need to be on the sword. So it's about an 800 bleed, and the skewer was about 800 or so. I don't know, let's say 1600 bleed per second. So while I'm trying to chase them down or whatnot, that's just added damage. And let's talk about some of the downsides to this build. What's the downside? Well, you need featherweight, you need butcher. Another downside is with that, you're gonna need, you know, a heavy piece here, heavy piece there, you know, you need a round shield. Now, with this build, you only have one heavy piece, and that'll be like feet, head, or gloves, but you need a round shield. I have one with keen, vicious, shield aggression, and I can't remember what the other perk is. I show it when I go over the gear at the end. And then getting all that gear together, you know, if somebody's like, hey, we want you to run this, you know, or if you're then trying to do an M3, a lot of times people are going to be like, well, the tank, sword and shield or whatnot. So then you may not get to run it as much. It's kind of a niche build. So is it worth going out of your way to put it together? To me, if you're with a group and that's what you're going to be doing, or if you just really love to see all the bleeds and do something different, it really, not many people run this setup, but man, it's so good in a lot of different situations. It's just, is it better than having an evade rapier, you know, or whatnot? Well, during the sandworm and all that, yes, but M3s, nah. You know, it's kind of in the in-between phase, similar to what the hatchet is. Is it better than an evade rapier? No. You know, is it better than a greatsword? No. I mean, greatsword and then switching to evade rapier on bosses, especially in M3s, is like the thing to do. So it's just in the in-between phase, and then having the extra gear, setting aside the featherweight, you know, and then at the very end, you got to get rid of the spear, you know, for the final boss, and then go blunderbuss or hatchet or whatever you fancy. It's just a little bit more work to put in that gear load, but you know, that's kind of what New World is. You know, if you want to be a very versatile top-end DPS player, you need to be versatile, and you need to be able to put that gear together, you know, if the group needs that. There's plenty of times I'm trying to sign up for an M3, usually main rapier, you know, but then they're like, hey, we need a spear, you know, great axe, or hey, we need a great sword with evade swap on boss. Okay, let me put some stuff together real quick, and you get to it. If you don't feel like playing that way, and you're more of, I just want to run a fire staff, or I just want to run a bow, not to pick on those guys. Let's say I just want to run a great axe and trenchant strikes with it or some trash. Then, you know, that's an individual play, you know, mindset. So you need to get out of that. This is a team concept. If you want to go in PvP and do the individual stuff, that's perfectly fine. OPR, because it's just a cluster F of people. But in this, there are builds that you can diversify with, like this one, and not be a individual. One thing I always usually run is the cunning firestorm. It's called kick, is what everybody knows the heart rune as, but there's stalwart, there's brutal, and there's cunning. The cunning one adds a really good fire dot, which will add to your, you know, dots in front of you that you're seeing. It's just one more thing ticking, which I love seeing. The vines, I'm not a big fan of. Too many people run the resilient vines, or the rending vines. And I feel like, you know, a lot of times I put it down, someone else putting it down, or they put it down as I was putting, you know, trying to press a button, put it down, or they put it down and I saw it too late because I'm old, you know, and then I put mine down. We would just waste it. Have different heart runes in your inventory so you can switch when you need to. Also on this, please pay attention to the spiders and try to kill them quickly if you can. If they're near you, they don't take too much damage for you to kill them, guys. Watch out for your healers. Like, people aren't paying attention. You need your healers up, especially we only have one healer. So if no one's paying attention to the spiders and they're going straight after the healer, or the tank don't try to get the spiders off of the healer, which a lot of tanks do, try to grab the spiders off the healer without grabbing any other mobs. You know, if your healer goes down and no one's caring about him, man, that's a lonely position to fill, you know, as a healer. It's really annoying when DPS are only infatuated with a lot of bleeds on their screen. I mean, who would think a bit about doing that over there? But yeah, try to help out your healers, guys, and you make sure you thank them at the end of the run, your tanks and healers, because I know we all want a DPS, right? And sometimes you gotta step out of that role and do something else so everybody else can have fun. All right, here we are on the last boss. I switched to the blunderbuss. Now, my blunderbuss is a Gorgons blunderbuss. It came with the claw shot, which will do 40% more damage after you claw shot to an enemy. So I went ahead and put on the claw shot. I normally would not run the claw shot. It could get you in a lot of trouble. But it is some added good damage when you can connect that and then follow up with a shot. Also have the shrapnel blast, which is pretty much mandatory on the blunderbuss, and then the grenades. So we're gonna add some burns, we're gonna add some quick damage, some burst damage to the flower, especially the one on the back, and then that's what we're gonna be focusing on here and extending any bleeds and debuffs with the sword and shield. Now I'm looking for the water because someone needs to be over here on station 2 when the tanks go to station 3, which is normally where the tank's at. Someone needs to be on station 2 throwing the water toward the back of the tail, not on the tail but near it. You could be around 2 to 3 feet from the green pool with the water throw, and you'll cleanse the basically the nature on the ground, the little pool of green crap. Now it will also give your DPS a chance to cleanse themselves. It's very important that someone is cleansing. If you watch some of the best groups in the, you know, in New World play, let's say the old boys from NA East, or yeah, the NA East Valhalla, that play on Nisa, Schmeck and them boys, well, Schmeck is usually back at station 2 throwing cleanses, communicating, hey, throwing a cleanses, back tail left, back tail right. Hey, there's a lot of white smoke, throwing a cleanse. All right, you know, that kind of thing. Hey, cleansing eggs on the, you know, station 4, and you got to communicate with tank eggs behind you, because tank a lot of times can't see stuff because it's crazy back there. And then you say, tank, rotate to station 2, you know, and then that way we can get over here, we can cleanse these eggs real quick. We let tank then rotate back to station 3 so he can cleanse himself, he or she, and then we communicate. This boss fight is about communication. First boss fight, it's just about mechanics, easy. I mean, you can almost go the whole fight without even being hit by any of his mechanics. The second boss, well, once you learn it, the second boss is about DPS, just pure damage. The third boss is teamwork, and you have to have people watching out for the flowers. You have to have people cleansing. You have to have usually 1 person or 2 person cleansing. You have to have people calling out the flowers, the charges, all that kind of stuff. Really hard to do in a public lobby. Once you get used to it, you won't need the call outs. You can kind of look around. You will slow yourself down as far as DPS doing that, but it will be just fine. You'll get through it. But yes, this one is about teamwork, and I know we struggled a few times to get through this for any of those guys that are checking out the video. Now I'm showing, of course, we just went right through it, but we did have some troubles, and someone asked, why did we run through the first boss and the second boss so easily, but now we're having trouble here? And I was like, yeah, this is a teamwork one. It's not about individual DPS. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about teamwork. So a lot of times, a lot of people will go range on this fight, which on this fight is perfectly fine. This fight is really almost impossible to do all melee whenever you don't have communications and you're playing with random people. It's just best just to go range in this fight, drop the ego, go range, and just chill. Just go 400, you know, dex with your bow, go, you know, 400 int with your, you know, whatever it is, fairy dust, and you could just throw that at the boss every now and then and do just fine. But that is overall the sword and shield and spear build. And then you can diversify here with range. Like I said, you can go hatchet, blunderbuss. You can even go inferno if you want to go inferno. Hell, I didn't even think about. Oh no, you can't because I got butcher. Never mind. You cannot go inferno unless you want to throw on a different sword. You know, you're not extending many bleeds on this boss. You're not even on the boss much here. So you could go with a different sword and go inferno here if you wanted to. That way you still provide leadership to the team, and then you have inferno in your back pocket. That's right. I'm selling it to you right now. You are in your inventory loading up that piece of crap sword, and you're going to throw inferno and say, this is a build that I was told to run by Mr. Bebop himself. Good Lord, I'm doing no damage. I'm pure try. But the tank's leaving, no one cares. Just leave him there. But yeah, anyways. All right, well, I hope y'all enjoyed the build video. I did get a Schmeckmatic the other day. It was medium pants, so hopefully somebody buys that on Nisa. I'll put it in the marketplace. Go buy somebody! And I will see y'all in the next video. Y'all have a good day, and later.
Children may not fly today, but we will.
Now let's go over the build here, because this is really good in the Hive of Gorgons, and I think you might actually really like it. If you're a fan of builds that have a lot of bleeds and you love seeing numbers on the screen, you will love this build. Let's start off with the weapon. Of course, we're gonna go Butcher. When you upgrade this, you have to add a gem slot, so it's not very hard to figure out what to do. Gem slot you get from the faction vendor, okay? Or you can buy it at Marketplace, but faction vendor would be the best bet. It has, what's so good about it is it has bleeds that last 33% longer, works on both weapons. Jagged Whirls, Whirling Blade inflicts bleed, dealing 10% weapon damage for 6 seconds. Empowering Whirling Blade, if 2 or more enemies are hit within a radius while performing a Whirling Blade attack, gain 24% base damage for each nearby target, max 5 targets. Keenly Jagged inflicts bleed on critical hit, dealing 10% weapon damage per second. And this is why in PvE, this is why a lot of Gorgon weapons suck. In PvE, if you get into M3s when they become more popular here in a few weeks, Keenly Jagged is absolutely terrible to perk to have on any of your weapons. You want the tank usually to have that on the weapons, but if the tank is going with a different setup, let's say a great sword or whatnot, this will be just fine. For whoever's running Butcher needs to be able to have this. That way their bleeds are counting onto the enemy, and that's usually a better way to do it. It helps tanks if they tank with the Butcher to also keep aggro. Usually you want to leave that for anybody using the Butcher. Now the spear here, I have Keenly Jagged, Disdain, Infliction. I'll put Bleeding Sweep on there. It's going to be a very quick, high damage ability. And what you're going to do is, you know, you'll start off with your, I usually start off with a spear so I can get the Bleeding Sweep going. But I'll skewer, get my empowerment going. As long as I hit a critical, I'll perforate, get the Bleeding Sweep, and then I'm over here to Sword and Shield. Get the Defender's Resolve, Heavy Attack to get your empowerment, Whirling Blade to get the Ren, and then big hit. The back slap is what I call it. Looks like you just like, bitch, you know, and hit somebody with the back slap. And, you know, then that way you can get a really big hit. Now, I'll go over the skill trees here in a second because you're probably wondering why the hell do you have Defender's Resolve? I'll explain it. Rending Vines is really good to have on this. You could choose whatever you want. I don't care. to me, as long as you have 27.5% on both slash and strike, you're good to go. They're pretty much the whole dungeon. You can add some more strike, go with the strike amulet. I usually throw this one on when I go to the first boss, which is strike protection right here. I'll just throw that on when I go to the first boss, and then I'm at 42 and we're good to go. And you usually hardly ever get hit with any of his attacks anyway, so it's just fine. Just make sure you can flip out your Ami and you'll be good to go. Then I can use this the whole rest of the dungeon. So 27 is a nice split to me. I have Keen Awareness Ring on, Hardy, and Leeching. You always want more criticals in this dungeon for the bosses because either they don't have backs like the first and last boss, but the first boss back is only exposed on the stand break phase. So little caveat to that, but it helps you get more criticals, which is going to help you do more damage. I have an earring right here. Healthy toast, refreshing toast, duplicating toast. That way I can always try to be healing up as much as I can. The headpiece, I have a medium head. Here with the featherweight is what I choose to go with. I'm at the very tippy top, 12.9 here, right before you would go over to 13 to medium. So you rock a medium piece here, a light glove, a medium legs, and a medium feet. If you use this for other purposes like PvP, then either go with your weapon perks or whatever you find is helpful. Health is universally good. Enchanter Ward, refreshing, and health. I am 4 out of 4 refreshing. Enchanter Ward and health. And then Enchanter Ward and health and refreshing. All right, let's go over the attributes real quick. We're 350 strength, 245 dex, 25 int, 5 and 5. If you can get better food and get up here, gain 10% empower for 3 seconds after successfully dodging an attack. That could help out, but that seems to work just fine right there. And that's taking 44 food. If we go into the skill tree here, the spear, this is what we go with. We go skewer all the way down. Bleed duration increase to 15 seconds. We go, you really don't need this because you're going to be extending your bleeds with the butcher. So what you could do is put that dot somewhere else, maybe a stamina perk or something, whatever you deem necessary. I like it on there, but it is what it is. So this is what you would choose to go with: skewer, perforate, and sweep. Perforate right here, just this box, that way the Ren stacks. And then you go sweep, and you make sure you pick this because the attack downward on the sweep is a heavy attack, so it'll reduce your cooldowns by 15%. And then we come over here to the sword, and this is what I have. Defender's Resolve, because when you have a round shield with Defender's Resolve, you do base damage increase by 20% while Defender's Resolve is active. That's with the round shield. So you're going to end up doing more base damage. You got regenerating in health, 10% increase. You have additional 15% armor and armor against magical types. Round shield, hitting a target will increase the duration of debuffs on them by 5%. So you just want to constantly extend the debuffs. And then this right here, third attack, it does 15% more damage. It does generate threat, but it's not enough to pull from that tank. Final attack inflicts rend 15% for 2 seconds. This is how you get your empowerment with the heavy attack. Whirling Blade. Now we are in a light gear set here, so 15% rend for 10 seconds. Then we have Whirling Blade reduces own cooldown 5% for each enemy hit. We have Sword and Shield critical strike chance increased by 10%. We also have abilities deal 10% more base damage to slowed foes, while health is full, 15% more base damage. We have Upheaval. It's going to do an upward slash that does 200 weapon damage. Right here, Upheaval hits against targets with inflicted with crowd control, stun, root, or slow status effects, deals 20% more base damage. On successful hit with the Upheaval, all other cooldowns are reduced by 25%. So you could choose to start off with a spear or the sword and shield. I start off with a spear, I skewer, I perforate, I bleed and sweep, and then I get right over here, get the Defender's Resolve going, get your empowerment going, get the Whirling Blade going, and then go ahead and do your Upheaval. And then you can just start light attacking to apply the Ren and keep the debuffs going, and you're good to go. Now, in the video, I did mess up the rotation at first. Not really used to having Defender's Resolve with this kind of a setup. I usually love to have Leaping Strike because to me, Leaping Strike applies the slow, and I feel like you're going to do additional damage if there's not enough slow on the boss from other sources. In public lobbies, you just never know, but you know, traditionally your tank's going to be running this, but never the slow. So unless people are putting slows down, you're not going to really take advantage of this. It's up to you to decide which one. I'm also going to run another hive here soon. Instead of Defender's Resolve, I'll go Leaping Strike, and then we'll see the difference in damage. All right. Well, that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you feel like you enjoyed this video, there's more like it on my channel. If you're new here, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good day.